Hi, this is Amber.
And this is Lisa.
And you're listening to Unexplained Arkansas, a new podcast that explores urban legends, mysteries, and the unsolved in the natural state.
We're just two best friends discussing the unexplained in Arkansas.
Hello, and welcome to Unexplained Arkansas. I'm Amber.
And I'm Lisa.
That took you a minute to say that.
Sorry.
I was like, am I on here by myself today?
Yes.
We are not in the same room. We are on opposite ends of the city doing this podcast. We figured out the first time that we couldn't be in the same room and do the podcast. So
no, not gonna happen. The
yes.
feedback. It was crazy.
Yes. We learned a lot in that first week, didn't we?
We did.
Yes,
now we
did.
know so much. So much
We
more.
do. We are podcasting experts. Not really. We're not. Okay, so today
we're giggly.
Today we are a little giggly today, I guess. It's been a long Christmas, New Year's break, and real life kind of sort of begins. This next week, school starts for everybody. This podcast will probably be out by the time you guys are commuting to your jobs, back to reality, right? I saw somebody post on Facebook that January was just like a giant Monday, and I totally agree with that. It is.
It is. It feels like that. But my Christmas is put up, so yay!
I had mine.
Go me.
I had mine put up like the day after. I was so tired of it.
You were tired of your cat and your kid getting into it.
That's true. By the
Let's be honest.
By the end of the month, my cat was on top of the tree. I have pictures to prove it. And I have a 10-foot tree. So, yeah. It was,
she likes
it
to
was
sit
crazy.
at the top.
She does. She likes to sit at the top of the tree and lord over all of us like her little subjects.
Like
yes.
I did.
Yes. In fact, she's in here now hiding and staring at me. She was trying to crawl up my leg a minute ago. So if I holler, it's because she's over here trying to crawl up into my lap. So with her
I
claws.
get a little distracted because like right behind you is like the screen where I can see our security camera. So I just saw Daryl and Elle bebop in to the garage. He took her to Ulta. So don't even get me started, Ulta.
Hey, I have to go every once in a while.
Oh, I love it, but man, she can drop some money in there. So,
oh yeah, it's expensive.
Yeah,
it
but
is.
She had two gift cards from Christmas. So,
yeah, one for me.
Yes,
no,
yes.
No, wait. I think I saw her spending that one on her phone while we were still there or something.
You're like, yeah. She's
I don't
good
know.
at that. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get right into it. Then we do have some fun commercials at the end. I do want to say this is a two-parter. We have kind of debated whether or not to make this a one-episode show or a two-episode show, but it really needs to be 2 episodes because there's just a lot that goes into this story. There'll probably be a lot of questions after we are done with these podcasts because
I probably will have lots of questions.
Yes, well, yeah.
During.
I'm talking about like other people, like the 2 people that listen to us. No, I'm kidding. But there may be a lot of questions. Yeah, because this is a very famous story. Actually, it's kind of gotten back in the public zeitgeist in the last 10, 20 years, thanks to a couple of books that have been published. Well, actually more than a couple. There have been a lot of research projects that have focused on this as well. So we're going to look at it from an Arkansas standpoint. So today, our double feature is all about Georgia Tann, or the notorious baby thief of Memphis, Tennessee. So my first question, Lisa, is have you ever heard of Georgia Tann or any of that? Because it's either yes or no, because a lot of people, even from Memphis, have never even heard of this story.
Yeah, before you told me about it, that was a no. And now I know a little bit about it because of what you've said, but no, I did not know anything about Georgia Tann.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I didn't either until I was in my 20s. I'd never heard any stories about it. And, I love Memphis. I go to Memphis quite a bit. I love Graceland. I've been there a lot of times. And I find reasons to go to Memphis for
10 feet off the bill. No.
Oh, yes. I love
Sorry.
I love that song.
Yes.
Don't you remember when we were in college and we'd go and I would make us listen to that one song, that Walking in Memphis song as we were going across the bridge, and y'all are like, what in the world? I'm like, just listen to it. It's so beautiful. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, we are just like we're going through all the lyrics of that song. Last week we talked about W.C. Handy, which is also in the lyrics. So, we'll just kind of hit all the high notes. Eventually, we're going to do an Elvis sightings in Arkansas podcast.
Excellent.
So maybe we should do our entire outline from Walking in Memphis. Okay. By Mark Cohn. Is that his name? Mark Cohn?
I have no idea.
I think that's him. I think it is.
Mark
okay,
Cohn.
So you are probably wondering, shout out, yes. You're probably wondering, though, why are we talking about a crime that happened in Memphis when we are an Arkansas podcast? Well, the reason is because Georgia Tann's misdeeds actually reached beyond state lines. And I found out from a personal experience that those misdeeds also were happening in our state, in Arkansas. So allegedly, and I'm going to use that term here and there, but allegedly she looked for children to sell in various states surrounding Tennessee, surrounding her own state. So I can say for sure Arkansas was one of them because 15 years ago, I uncovered my own family's connection to Georgia Tann, which I will talk about in this podcast. Yeah, so that was a big shocker. And, Lisa, of course, knows, roughly what happened, but I'm going to explain it kind of fully in this podcast. And you may have some questions you didn't ask me the first time I told it to you, so we'll just see. But just very quickly, Georgia Tann was a social worker who became a human trafficker under the guise of adoptions. And she was a proponent for adoptions. She helped move adoptions into vogue, I guess you can say, with rich people. Rich people started adopting some of her quote unquote orphans that she had. She managed the Tennessee Children's Home Society, which was an adoption agency in Memphis, Tennessee. And she used this unlicensed home as a front for what a lot of reports called a black market baby adoption scheme. Now, this started in the 1920s and ran all the way until the end of the 1940s. And allegedly, here's that word again, allegedly young children were kidnapped and then sold to wealthy families. Some were abused, and some didn't make it out alive. Now, there are varying opinions on what all happened in that quote unquote house of horrors on Poplar Avenue. And there are still lots of questions about the involvement of Memphis officials. I don't have all the answers to those, but there are lots of books written about Georgia Tann and the city of Memphis, all of that. But I will tell you that there was finally a state investigation into all those instances that I talked about of mistreatment, fraud, all that. And it led to the closure of the institution in 1950. And then just a few months later, Georgia Tann passed away. We'll talk about all of that. So that's a blip. That's
and I do have a little question. So you said unlicensed. So like on the home,
the home.
So yeah. So the home was unlicensed.
Yes. The children, all of them stayed in this home, which I'll have pictures in my resources. And the home has been torn down, but it was a 2-story home. It was a very stately, beautiful home on Poplar Avenue, and it was torn down. So, and that's where a lot of the children stayed.
So she didn't have the right to have the home. Is that correct? Or is that the unlicensed part?
I think what the reporters meant by unlicensed was she probably didn't have the proper paperwork to do everything that she was doing. So
so she was kind of under the table
Yeah, that's a good word
situation.
for her. Yeah, okay. That's totally a good word for her.
She sounds awful, but anyway.
Yeah. The more I read about her, so okay. So fast facts. People may already know this, but in the 1940s, Georgia Tann of Memphis was synonymous with adoption. If you adopted somebody, if you adopted a child, you usually went through Georgia Tann. During the 1930s and 1940s, Georgia Tann placed so many kids up for adoption that now today, historians are really still debating the exact number, because she would cook up birth certificates, and she would destroy records and things like that. So the exact number of children and all the exchanges that happen may never be known. So that's another mystery about this.
Gotcha.
Right. And so eventually, after some debate, the state did start an investigation into Tann's misdeeds and found that during that time she had neglected to follow medical advice regarding her children, and that may have resulted in the premature death of many. And so it was at that point in 1950 that it all started getting unraveled. So Tann also, like I said, destroyed important adoption documents and paperwork, which to this day has made it more difficult for families of the lost children to find the answers they need. And I have met a few of them in my research, which I'll talk about later.
Some of the children that were adopted?
Yeah, that are grown up now. Yeah. I've had the privilege of meeting a couple of them and getting to hear their stories, because I have been researching this particular topic for over 15 years. So for a very long time.
Yeah.
So my family was eventually counted in this unfortunate group of Georgia Tann victims, because in 2008, I discovered that my husband's grandmother was part of this whole Georgia Tann world in the 1940s.
So this was she would go have her baby at Georgia, like Georgia Tann would take women.
Yes. Yeah, I'll tell you most of the story. I'm gonna leave some of the information just out for privacy. Scott's grandmother has since passed away many years ago. She passed, but her story, I believe, needs to be told, because here she was, a young woman without means in the 1940s, and probably felt like she had to give away her child. But like I said, we'll get into that in just a second.
Okay.
So I have been working, though, for years to find answers to our own little family mystery we have, and find the final resting place of her child, which, according to death certificates, because there's two, which is crazy, but there's two death certificates, he died 14 weeks after he was born. And his last known address was 1556 Poplar Avenue, which is Georgia Tann's place. So, So we're just one of many families who are seeking answers to this, and, really want to know what happened in that area of Memphis and those babies. I wanted to really start out, though, talking about the unmarked grave that is in Elmwood Cemetery, which is a gorgeous cemetery in Memphis. And there's actually a page you can follow on Facebook with lots of photography, because it's some of the most gorgeous tombstones and statues that you've ever seen. And it's right in the middle of Memphis. So there is a marker, gigantic marker, that is in memory of some of these children that were lost during the Georgia Tann stuff. So, yeah. So the marker, go ahead.
Yep. Sorry. When you say lost, like, were these?
They died. Like they died of unnatural causes. Yeah.
Gotcha. And then did they bury them all together? Like,
see, that's part of the mystery. No one really knows how many babies died. There was an estimate of 50 babies that died. There was an estimate of a whole lot more than that.
Oh my goodness.
I stick closer to the number of 50 because of some of the evidence I've been able to look at through the years, because there was like a dysentery outbreak, something like that, like diarrhea, dysentery outbreak at that time, which probably resulted in the deaths of several of those children. But there are 19 remains, 19 different children's remains that do rest in Elmwood Cemetery. They are unmarked because no one knows who these children are or who they belong to. Yeah.
Where did they find the remains?
Now,
did they...
there has been stories, and this is, going back to hearsay, and I try not to do hearsay with this story, but it's hard to pinpoint one person to say, yep, this is where they came from. But there's been stories that there were remains on her property, things like that. So I don't know for sure. Allegedly.
Allegedly.
So so it got pretty hairy there. So but the unmarked grave reads, in memory of the 19 children who finally rest here, unmarked, if not unknown, and all of the hundreds who died under the cold, hard hand of the Tennessee Children's Home Society. Their final resting place unknown, their final peace a blessing. Yeah,
that very is so sad. Wild.
So, in Elmwood Cemetery, under that marker are the remains of 19 children. And and when I say they, historians and researchers believe there are many more.
Was it like the city that did this, or organization?
I don't know who did the grave. That's probably a good question. I don't know who finally gave or finally put up the memorial. It's really nice. I've already put a picture of that on our Facebook. So yeah. One thing though that I really have thought about, in the time of DNA and all that, would it be possible to,
at least get do the ancestral DNA,
to find some kind of familial DNA from those remains? I mean, I know it's not going to do anybody any good to see if we can find our family member, in that grave spot, but it could close a mystery that people have had. So,
well, I mean, could it have been that because she was basically saying these babies, quote unquote, died, but then she was selling the babies, right?
Some of them did die.
Yeah. So
we are talking hundreds and hundreds of babies, and some say thousands, but it could be, nobody knows the exact number. It depends on who you talk to, how many babies they'll say was sold or were sold. Sorry.
That's so crazy.
So yeah, it is. The whole story is absolutely nuts. So let's start at the beginning. And who exactly was
That's a very
Georgia
good
Tann?
Place to start.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Sound of Music or something.
I know where that's from. So Beulah Georgia Tann. So her name was Beulah George Tann. Beulah. And she was born in 1891, July 18th, 1891. And she died in September of 1950. And let's see, she was actually born in Philadelphia, Mississippi. And she grew up in Hickory, Mississippi. She grew up a smart, accomplished young woman, and she was from a very affluent family in that area. Her dad was a lawyer. They sent her to school at Martha Washington College, and that's up north. She ended up taking courses at Columbia even. So she was a very smart cookie. In 1913, she got a degree in music, but she really wanted to be a lawyer. So when she got home, she passed the Mississippi bar exam.
Okay.
So,
wow.
Yeah. Which for a woman in the South in that time period, that's, pretty much unheard of. So she was actually, sadly, and this is sad for her, she was rejected as a lawyer due to her gender. So she, as a backup, started working for the Mississippi Department of Human Services. And so that's where that's where the story takes a dramatic turn, because she did find a passion in helping children, who come into the system find homes and all of that. But she had some pretty shady ways of doing things in Mississippi as well. And they didn't keep her very long at that job. Yeah.
What did she do? Like, did it say what she did?
The ways she would, take children and, the years she would spend removing neglected and abused children from homes in Mississippi, there were some questionable things that she did. So they ended up pretty much getting rid of her. So I don't know if she was fired or made to leave, whatever, but that's just what all the accounts I've read have said. Also, it was there that she met her partner, and her partner's name was Anne. And according to, I've looked all this up in the census stuff, and Anne lived with her from this time until Georgia's death. And they were, and they lived together in a census in the 1940 census in Memphis. And so by all accounts, from what I've read, Anne was her partner. And Anne was a widowed woman who had a child named Jack. And then Tann, Georgia Tann, adopted a little girl named June. So that was her family, was Anne, Jack, and June.
Were they, obviously this is back when and things weren't accepted. Were they did they state they were friends or something?
Sisters? What sisters? Foster sisters. Yeah. That's what it said. Yeah, because I was looking at her, some of the probate or the will stuff in the estate, because they had there was a big deal over her estate after she died, because she had been, taking money out of the state's account. So there was a lot of upheaval, and Anne was listed in some of those articles relating to the estate. So,
And listed as a foster sister?
Well, in something I read, she was listed as a foster sister, and then another one, she was the one that inherited. Well, actually, I think her mother was listed as somebody who inherited it as well. I don't know, something like that. But they were all kind of involved. It's like she died, and then right after she died, the crap hit the fan about the home, the abuse allegations, the stealing, all of that, and her family was kind of left to pick up the pieces, which is sad.
Yeah, but I'm sure that Anne obviously knew. So.
Well, I mean, maybe who knows? Maybe. No. I mean, how could she not? But
that'd be tough.
You never know.
If she was living there, I mean.
Yeah. Well, actually, they lived in a house that was just kind of down the way on Stonewall, and that was their last known address together.
Okay.
Yeah, but
so they didn't live in the home with the children.
Well, the children lived in a separate residence, and then she had her personal residence, which there were children that would come to her personal residence too, apparently. So so she met Anne, they formed their family, and Mississippi.
And what year was that she met Anne? Sorry.
Well, let's see, it was in the late 1920s that that all of that started.
So she would have been in her 20s. Okay.
Well, yeah.
In her,
well,
30s, because she was born 30s. In 1890.
Yeah, because in 1940 she was in early or mid 30s. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was probably in the 20s when all this happened. So when it started, and Tann, when they moved to Memphis, found a job as the executive secretary of the Shelby County branch of the Tennessee Children's Home Society. So when she started, she was just an executive secretary. Now they also, they had a building located downtown in the Goodwin building in Memphis. I'm not sure where that is. There were other branches of the Children's Home in Jackson, Tennessee, Chattanooga, and Knoxville. No branch in Nashville. So yeah, it just said Jackson, Chattanooga, and Knoxville. So in that little area.
I don't know where anything is in Memphis other than Graceland.
Yeah, you don't know where anything is but Graceland. I can get to Nashville without a map. Yeah.
Oh my, really?
Yeah, I can. I've been enough times. I love Nashville almost as much as I love Memphis.
I don't think I could get to Little Rock without. No, I'm just kidding.
I love that drive. I love to go to Memphis, and I love to go to Nashville. Okay, so by I said late 20s, it was mid 20s. By 1924, Tann began trafficking children after having actually taken over the children's home. So somehow she came in there to that organization and just took over. And, some of the reports I read was the way she took over was probably kind of a shady way anyway, but now she was the head of the whole thing. She went from the executive secretary to, by 1924, she was running the whole shebang, right? And so she began to really promote the organization and find child-seeking families as far away as like New York and California. One of my friends,
did it say how she did that? Like how she
newspaper ads, word of mouth, newspaper ads, all the things. Yes. Eventually, the demand for adoptions outweighed the supply. because apparently she was a good business head,
Okay.
because she was
ran
very
out of
popular.
children.
She ran out of children. Right.
Wow.
So, yes. And
sadly, that's like unheard of, I'm sure, because there's so many, display, they always say here that they need so many people to foster, and there's just so many kids.
Well, part of the reason there's so many, rules, guidelines, laws that affect is because of all this. I mean, because she
ruined it for everybody.
She just was going nutso during that time period, and actually she was in with some of the biggest names in the city of Memphis. She held court with people like Eleanor Roosevelt. She spoke everywhere on all kinds of topics. Everybody just trusted her and believed everything that she said. She was the authority on adoption for many people. In fact, the reason that we have closed adoptions, part of the reason is because of her, because she lobbied for closed adoptions, which of course she did. She didn't want anybody knowing the truth.
Yeah. Wow.
So she had so many co-conspirators right there in Memphis. She had scouts. She paid people to be scouts, and they would go out all over Tennessee and Mississippi and Arkansas and look for unwed mothers. They would be paying attention to church gossip. They would talk to doctors who, had patients that were unwed mothers, trying to get the scoop on the babies. Yes. And it became bigger and bigger and bigger. And what started maybe as Tann having a passion for underprivileged children turned into a beast of a business where children were the commodity.
Yeah. And I have a question. So how much was she charging? I mean, was she charging just outrageous amounts?
Okay, yeah, she was. Okay. And it changed.
Okay.
The amounts changed as...
And she was pocketing. So we'll get into that.
She was pocketing 90% of it is what the... one of the final investigations showed. And there are several investigations, by the way, that you can read through the state of Tennessee, because they did have all these investigations going on after the fact, after she died. So, but we'll get into all that. Okay. So she began to rub elbows, like I said, with important and affluent Memphis residents. One that is very well known, I'm not going to say allegedly because this is in all the books, but her name was Judge Camille Kelly. And, you're like, oh, female judge, rah, rah. I'm like, yay. Yeah. But no, she was helping Tann take babies and children away from their moms and dads.
So she was in collusions with Tann. I guess they knew 100%. What they were doing, and probably she was paying her.
She was paying her, and that's been documented and proven. Most of the things.
So these lady bosses turned evil lady bosses. Yikes.
I hate that because everybody knows women make great bosses. So this is awful.
Of course we do. And all the men just cringed and died a little bit.
Okay, so I think that Camille Kelly was her biggest ally because she was a judge. Yeah.
So she could do all sorts of things.
Yeah. Well, and she just became really good at working the system. And it became a very lucrative business where she made so much money. And, there have been so many people that have looked into the background of Camille Kelly and some of the other people in Memphis. And, it's just almost unheard of how quiet this was kept for, that number of years. I mean, how did this stay so quiet?
They didn't have the internet.
Well, but also, I mean, if you've got a baby snatcher out there, which, I did hear one woman specifically say, well, she wasn't a snatcher. She didn't take them off the lawn. Like some people say, I don't know. Yeah. I've heard different accounts. Some people say that she didn't do that, but I've also heard other people say that she did. So who knows what the truth is? Not me.
Like literally stealing babies out in public. Well, like just taking them.
Well, no, like let's say you see 3 kids that have definitely not been kept up sitting on the front stoop in the middle of the Great Depression. Maybe the next day they're carted off to be wards of the state, something like that. So that's probably what is meant by that.
Yeah.
But, I'm not going to hurl those accusations because too many people do say that about her. But they need to back that up with specific evidence. Do I think it is possible that happened? Oh, yeah, definitely. But have I ever, myself heard of several accounts of that? Not that maybe something close to that, but I don't know.
So that kind of goes back and forth whether people think that she was stealing them.
She just snatched them. Like she just drove up in her she had this humongous black car that she'd drive around in.
Like
I don't
Cadillac.
think she just I don't think she just was driving
like,
around
hop
taking
in,
kids.
Little kids.
Exactly. I don't know. I don't think that's
what creepy.
But I might be wrong. I mean, if I'm wrong, I don't know. I mean, let me know because I've read so many different things on it.
Let us know if Amber's wrong.
I could be, but I have some sources that work directly with the 60 Minutes documentary back in the early 90s who don't think that's necessarily what happened. The snatch and grab. So it was more, we're going to tell on you for being an unfit mother, then we're going to come back and get your kids.
Yeah.
So,
like we're going to, wow.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. So, I know that I kind of like sidestepped that, but because I wasn't there, I don't know. I just know what I've read about and what I've been told. I've spoken, to several people involved. One of which just published a book, I think in October. I'm going to put her book on there. She's really sweet. She still lives in Memphis, but I'm going to put her book on there too. It's kind of a personal account, but also her account of helping the former or helping the victims of the Georgia Tann situation find their families. She did that for a number of years. Yeah. She tried to help me, but I don't think, unfortunately, I don't think that our baby made it, past that first year of life. Right. Okay. So Tann was very calculated and she targeted the rich and famous, right? I think she was a fangirl. I don't know, but she targeted the rich and famous because they paid, really nicely for these babies. One that is no surprise because we've all watched Mommy Dearest is Joan Crawford. Two of her children were from Tann. Now, I don't think the first one was. I think her twins were from Tann. I think the first two kids were from another source, but I just watched Mommy Dearest, and within like the first 20 minutes within the first 20 minutes of the movie, it is shown that Joan Crawford really loved children, wanted children of her own, but the state of California wouldn't let her adopt because she was twice divorced. She lived alone and she worked a lot, which is no reason to not be given a kid. But at the time, that's how it was. So she had help. And she ended up with 4 children, and 2 of which came from the Georgia Tann house. So, yes.
And how much does it say how much she paid?
It doesn't say how much she paid. Yeah.
But she outsourced. To Georgia Tann.
Yes.
Also, and out of state.
Also, Arkansas native Dick Powell and June Allison, they also outsourced to Tann.
Who are those people? Sorry.
They're old movie stars. They're movie stars.
What did they do? What movies did they do?
I don't know. June Allison was like, she was like in some Depends commercials when we were kids. I don't know, but I know I don't know. But I know she did some stuff before that. I don't remember what it was. I'll have to ask my mom.
Carry on. I'm going to look this up.
I know Dick Powell is from Arkansas because he was born in Mountain View, because there's a little sign in Mountain View that says home of Dick Powell. And so don't ask me what he was in. Yes, they were very proud of it.
Okay, I will tell you what he was in. He had his own, oh my goodness. He had his own show, Amber. He had the Dick Powell show for 2 years, but he was in, I guess he started in the 30s. He was, that's interesting. So he did movies in the 30s. He was very popular then. There's like nothing, Murder, My Sweet. He was in that movie, I guess. And he was in something called Gold Diggers of 1935. Oh my goodness.
Oh, nice.
Wow. And Wait. He was in a movie called The Enemy Below in 1957.
I have not seen any of these movies.
Oh, he was in a movie with the Douglas, like Michael Douglas's dad.
The
Kirk
elder
Douglas,
Douglas,
right?
Kirk Douglas, yes.
And Lana Turner, The Bad and the Beautiful. He was in.
Well, okay, so oh my goodness, Lana Turner's on, or Lana Turner, however you say her name. She's on my list here too. She had a tan baby as well.
So they were all talking. So word
they
of
were
mouth.
in cahoots. They were in cahoots. Apparently.
Who was this other person? Jennifer Allison?
No, June Allison.
June. Oh, June. Yeah, I wonder if Depends commercial pops up.
Depends commercial.
She was it does say American film actress.
And Depends sponsor. Oh my
gosh. She had a career in the 1937.
We're going to be called by June Allison's kids, grandkids.
Oh, she was in several movies.
Yeah, I know the name. I just can't tell you anything she's in. Was she in Pollyanna?
She was in
Falcon Crest.
She did a movie with Jimmy Stewart, The Stratton Story. This was 1949. She's had several movies. I mean, it was like old. Like she did. I mean, I don't recognize any of these, but The Bride Goes Wild in 1948.
How wild can a bride go in 1948?
I can't even imagine. She took her shoes off and ran around the house. I don't know. She was in a movie. It looks like some movie with Lucille Ball in 43, Best Foot Forward, and she had some stuff. She had a lot of movies.
Well, now I'm not sure the dates in which Pal and Allison adopted theirs, but
Whoa.
Oh Lord, what?
She was in something with the kid. Oh, the little, what's his name? Good. Gary Coleman. She did something with him, the kid with the broken halo in 1982.
Yeah, because I remember her being alive in the 80s because she was doing those commercials. So. And maybe denture cream. I don't know. Something like that. Dentures and Depends. I don't know. We may get
it didn't mention
this
those
episode
things.
Pulled for those things. So
That's funny. This is not an ad.
This is not an ad. Okay, so I can't even tell you anything Joan Crawford has been in because yes, I can. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. I do love that movie. That's a good movie. Okay, so
and we will explore whatever happened. No, I'm just kidding.
Ric Flair was a Georgia Tann baby. The wrestler.
He was?
Yes, and he had like an autobiographical documentary come out last year, I think, and I don't remember if it was Peacock or Paramount. I get my P's mixed up, but he says in the first part of the documentary that he was. So yes, that is true.
So that means he was adopted via
Georgia Tann.
So,
yes.
He could have been, stolen from his mother.
I mean,
allegedly.
I don't know. Allegedly. I mean, like I said, there are hundreds of these cases, and we can't say anything for sure, right? Sure. I mean,
what year was that? When was he born?
I think 45, 46, something like that. And Joan Crawford adopted her twins in 47. Okay. And the whole operation shut down in 1950. So this was kind of near the end. Yeah.
Near the end.
So Business Insider was one of the articles that I looked at. And one of the quotes came from that came from Business Insider was that Tann was in cahoots. I love that word, cahoots. She was in cahoots with a local judge who helped procure children specifically from impoverished single or widowed mothers. So it wasn't just single mothers, it was widowed mothers too.
Okay.
And
just took advantage of these
took
people,
advantage of the situation. Right. One of her most high profile co-conspirators was Judge Camille Kelly, who presided over the juvenile court in Shelby County for 30 years. And of course, Shelby County being the county Memphis is in. Yes. And Memphis is the county seat. All right. So eventually the number of parents seeking children from Tann grew so much that she had to take on even more devious tactics, and she raised her prices. Tennessee law required at the time the children to be adopted in state in-state for a fee of $7, which is about $75 in today's money. But Tann moved her merchandise, quote unquote, and this is Business Insider using that word, at $1,000 per head. So $10,000 today.
So we're talking how much today?
Yeah.
Would that be?
Like 10,000 today.
10,000. Okay.
Yes. Which according to this, she wasn't telling people that. No, she would pocket 90% of the fee.
Wow.
Yeah. So she would gouge all these parents, and she would, she would charge them for travel costs, home visits, attorney's fees, all of this. So really the state was collecting a very small portion of the money, like, just pennies compared to what she was probably collecting.
Maybe she was saying, okay, yeah, if the normal was $7, so she was just all the other she was pocketing. If she was
all the other she was pocketing. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
My goodness.
Yes. So as things do, eventually they lose their luster and people start finding crap out. So in 1941, things began to happen. People began to start suspecting there weren't good things happening there.
Okay.
Yes.
And how did that start? Does it say what began?
I think it just started with stories and, just people experiencing, the loss of children and not being able to get their children returned and things like that.
And finding out she was selling them for $1,000.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So in 1941, the Tennessee Children's Home lost its endorsement from the Child Welfare League of America, which was a huge deal because they discovered Tann had been destroying paperwork that she had done for the child placements. She'd just been destroying it. The society remained unlicensed then until it closed in the 1950s. So that's when it became unlicensed.
Wow.
So, yeah, because she wasn't doing the proper paperwork, and if she was, I guess she was burning it. I don't know.
Yeah, because she didn't want a paper trail.
She did not want a paper trail.
Came from.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So Georgia Tann's business was pretty much still booming, irregardless, of all this with licensing. Who needs a license, right? So so it was still booming, but there were cracks in the foundation, and every year it got a little bit worse. It was a nosy child protection service agent who happened to see that the death of young infants was rising in sheer number. Like rising in the city of Memphis. In fact, Memphis, Tennessee had the highest percentage of infant mortality than anybody else around.
Wow.
And this young child protection service workers like, hey, that's not right. Why do we have the highest death rate for infants? And so that is when people really started to talk and people started asking for investigations. So the Commercial Appeal, which is the big newspaper in Memphis, still is, it said in one of its articles, it's written many articles about this, that Georgia Tann was protected by Memphis politicians and judges, and she ruthlessly swept up choice babies from the docks, streets, and backwoods of Tennessee, Arkansas, and Mississippi. And so according to them, the Children's Home sent more than 5,000 children to eager would-be parents from coast to coast, many of whom were too old or otherwise ineligible to adopt children through traditional routes, which is, the Joan Crawford story in Mommy Dearest. An additional 500 children are believed to have died of neglect and abuse in Tann's custody, which is kind of where unfortunately, the situation with my family member, we think, ended up in that realm. So the Commercial Appeal also said that Tann delivered the desirable blonde babies for prices estimated as high as $14,000 in today's dollars. So the little blonde babies, I guess, went for higher. And if you look at the pictures of Joan Crawford, all her kids are little blonde babies.
Little blonde baby.
Yeah. It's creepy.
Wow. That is creepy. Oh.
Yeah. What is that movie where they're all blonde? Children of the Damned? Village of the Damned? I don't know. They're all blonde with light eyes, and they're all like little alien beings. That's a movie, I promise you. It was a movie and a remake. Yeah.
Flowers in the Attic? No.
They were all blonde too. So
let's not get into that.
I was blonde. Okay, I was a blonde kid too. So
you were a blonde. Daryl was a blonde kid. My husband.
I find that hard to believe.
I know. His hair was like
it's
dark, when I met him, and now he has no hair.
Yeah. Well, mine was blonde when I was a kid, and then it just got darker. And, by the time I met you, I was dying at like every 6 weeks. So, because it was still blonde in high school.
I think in my mind's eye, you're still blonde, though,
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. Yeah. Okay. So, like I said, Tann and her quote unquote scouts would find leads through doctors' offices, soup kitchens, churches. Yeah. I mean, that's just pitiful and awful. Yeah. And I just can't even fathom that. So, go ahead.
Yeah. It's just sickening. It's just sickening. And I guess I have a lot more questions about the ones that I guess weren't being taken care of, but
yeah. And that happened too. I mean, but there were situations where children were taken from homes where they had been abused. That
I was just thinking
happened.
The ones that she was abusing, that were dying in her care. So
yes, we'll get into that here in just a minute. Yeah. So the Tennessee Children's Home, basically, kept going. It kept going in the Memphis community until, the 1950s. And if you want to read more about that part, you can actually look at all the clippings and things at the local library in Memphis. They have a whole section, box, whatever, full of Georgia Tann stuff, because this was a huge story. What's weird is a lot of people don't know it, a lot of people that I know that grew up in Memphis don't know the story, and I've had to tell them the story, and they're like, really? And then it never fails. Like, at least half of them will say, I had to call my mom. So they'll call their mom. They're like, did this really happen? And so, I mean, it's not really something that's talked about a lot. I think this is really kind of a bad kind of time period for Memphis. So, okay. So like I said, in 1941,
well, I don't think it's a great time period for it now.
No.
In a different respect. Be careful if you go to Memphis.
Well, 1941, the orphanage lost its endorsement. Tann had been destroying the paperwork, all that. So like I said, it was unlicensed, right?
But she's still working with
but she was still doing everything. It was just unlicensed. Gotcha. Right. But again, you have to remember she had the judge, she had the mayor, supposedly. Now this is allegedly. She had all these powerful people that had her back. Right. Right. So they did find out in the later investigation, like after her death, they did one of several investigations, and the official state investigation said that she had arranged thousands of questionable adoptions, quote unquote, and that there were secret bank accounts and numerous recorded irregularities, and that basically what they said was she had ran what they described as a black market adoption ring and skimmed as much as 90% or more of the adoption fees for the children that were placed out of state. Yeah. So this collection of materials that I'm talking about is, like I said, in the Memphis Library downtown. And I think it's, it says it right here. It's one box. It's one box full of newspaper clips and magazine articles, annuals, things like that. You can look through it. You can check it out. I think you have to stay there while you look at it. I've always wanted to go and look at it, but most of the stuff that I have found has been, online or through Ancestry. I found some new articles today, actually, through Ancestry that I'll talk to you guys about probably in episode 2. Okay. But, there's a lot that is still there to be discovered and found out. Like, all of our citizen detectives out there, all of our Misty Quigley citizen detectives, this is still an ongoing investigation, basically. There's still people that are trying to find long lost relatives like me. We're trying to find, find out what happened to this child that we will get into in episode 2. Okay. But many of the items in the collection are from the 50s and 40s and that time period. So, all right. So that is pretty much it for episode 1. And we will start
Crawford. We learned so much. We learned
about Joan Crawford. Yes.
Dick Powell and June Allison.
Yes.
Depends commercials.
The Depends commercial. I swear she did those. I might be wrong though.
And poor families that were broken up because of just greed.
Yes. And we'll get into that part in episode 2. We'll talk about my family's situation, and we'll also talk about what happened to Georgia Tann at the end, and we'll also talk about my visit to Tann's house. Yeah, I don't want to give away too much, but I did get a private tour of her home. And let me tell you,
of her personal home or the children's
her personal home on Stonewall.
Ooh, interesting.
And oh gosh, yes, very interesting. Cool. I can't wait to tell you that part.
Awesome. Well, and also, so we're wrapping up this episode, but we're gonna do part.
What you did? I was sticking my tongue out at her. Sorry.
Yeah, part 2. She looked like a maniac, but no, that's because we're giddy tonight. But you, no, I was gonna say we had another country added to our listeners. It was Canada.
Canada.
Whatever. Canada.
So hi, Canada.
Hi, Canada. We had Germany, Poland, Italy, and then
Italy.
You told me Canada this week, so I was like,
Canada. Yeah. Yes, we're just racking up those countries. I'm so excited.
I really want for you all, if you know the one listener from these countries, to phone in. So you guys please go rate. Obviously, if you're listening, thanks, but rate. What is it? Review.
We love our Arkansas listeners too.
Yes, we love the Arkansas listeners.
Listeners from our country
are getting
too.
Such. Go find us on Facebook and the Instagram. What?
You just go on and on about our 4 listeners from Poland. I know. Talk about our listeners here. Like my mother listens every time we drop. She doesn't waste a second before she's listening.
Shout out to Paula. Hey, my brother-in-law Rob, Jeff,
those
and Dorothy.
Those are our real fans right there.
We can't leave out Kim. Kim is Kim L. I won't say your last name, Kim. You know who you are.
Names. You know who you are.
Yeah. You know who you are. And all of our friends, they're all listening.
We haven't had very many comments to read. I think there's a couple actually that we can read. We can we can read them.
Do it the next?
Yeah, we'll read comments in episode 2. Hopefully my mother didn't just leave a comment that said good.
I hope she did. I hope she did.
Just good. Period. So,
hey, she's straight to the point, and she could have said something else.
That's true. That's true.
Said,
knowing my mother, she
could have just said like the thumbs down.
Yeah.
Be like,
okay, so then we've got lots to do in the next episode. So this is going to wrap up part 1, and we really are appreciative for all of our listeners. We're really excited.
Yes.
We were supposed to just have one podcast by January 14th, and this is number 9?
8.
Is it number 8? Oh,
yeah,
8.
This will
number 8.
This will be number 8, and then we'll have 9. So yeah, I'm excited. We weren't even going to launch until after this date, because we weren't going to launch until like the 14th. So,
yes.
Look at us.
We're very.
Just like,
I know. I'm so proud of us. Yay! And we also have some speaking engagements lined up already. So we'll tell you.
Yes,
we'll tell you more about those later.
Please come listen to us at later. We will get you the information.
We'll get you the information later. Okay, so that's all we have for this episode. Stay tuned for episode 2. See you later.
Yes. Bye. Love you.
Bye.
Bye.